Hello and welcome to Crime Watch Daily Updates. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. We're looking back at the case of a young mother and aspiring preschool teacher whose life was cut short much too soon. Holly Cassano was 22 years old, and she worked the late shift at a local supermarket. On November 1 of 2009, she stayed after hours to have cookies with her coworkers while her mother watched her 17-month-old daughter, Alexis. When Holly didn't pick up Alexis the next morning, Holly's mom went over to her house to check on her. Unfortunately, she came across a tragic and brutal sight. Her daughter had been stabbed more than 50 times. She had also been sexually assaulted after she died. In 2018, Michael Henslick, who attended Holly's high school, was arrested and charged with murder after DNA from a cigarette butt linked him to the crime. He was convicted in February of 2020 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Henslick's attorney appealed the conviction in April of 2022, but the court upheld the sentence. Let's take a look back at Holly's murder, a tragic story of a young mom who would never get to see her own daughter grow up.
22-year-old Holly Cassano was open and outgoing, maybe to a fault.
I don't want to say she's naive because the word naive just sounds so negative, but she really was so innocent. She lived in a small town, so I don't really think that being cautious or being worried is something that came natural to her.
But what did come naturally to Holly was being a good mom to her adorable 17-month-old daughter, Alexis.
Alexis was starting to say new words, and she was really excited about that.
She worked 2 jobs to support her daughter and give her daughter the things that she thought that her daughter needed, wanted, and would enjoy.
But a cashier job at the Meijer supermarket was just means to an end. Holly's cousin Amber says she had her heart set on teaching preschool.
What she really wanted to do was teach children.
Holly put down roots just a stone's throw from her mom, aunt, and grandmother in the neighborhood of Candlewood Estates, where you could often find the young mother pushing a stroller, greeting everyone she met with a smile.
She loved everyone. She talked to everyone. Everyone in the park knew who she was.
Then late one night, just after Halloween, Holly's bright smile would fade forever, when a true-life monster would stalk the streets of Candlewood Estates. That evening, Holly had to work the late shift at the supermarket, and her mom takes little Alexis to meet her for a goodnight kiss before bedtime.
They had so much fun. There was her and Alexis dancing through the store, and then we said goodbye, and that was the last I saw.
It's an image that now haunts Tony, along with a final phone call late that night.
She had called me. She was getting off of work, and she says, "Mom, one of my friends here at work is making cookies, and I really, really want to stay and have cookies." I'm like, "Be sure that you're back to the house early enough so that you'll be up to get Alexis in the morning." "I promise, Mom, I promise. I'll get her in the morning."
Tragically, it's a promise Holly would never keep. Baby Alexis is already fast asleep at Grandma Tony's when Holly finally gets home just before midnight. The exhausted mom settles into bed alone, sending a short text message to a coworker friend, the single word, "Hey."
That occurred at about 11:16 p.m. that night. It went unanswered.
When it comes time to pick up Alexis the next morning, Holly's a no-show.
She didn't answer her phone. She didn't answer the text messages that I sent her. I decided I was going to go over there and wake her up.
Tony races over, then goes inside and sees something that no mother should ever have to see.
I walked through the house and I called for her and she didn't answer. And I went back further into the house and I would have never thought that I would ever see a scene like that in real life.
Spread out on the bedroom floor, covered in blood, it's Holly stabbed to death. Tony's heart stops.
I sat down next to her and I calmly prayed to God And then I picked up the phone and dialed 911 and told them my daughter was killed. They told me I had to leave the house. I had to go outside. But I didn't want to leave her.
Terrified yet heartbroken, Tony finally pulls herself away and sits on her daughter's front steps as cops move in.
I watched them take my baby out of her house in a body bag.
Holly's family gathers and looks on in disbelief.
I'll always remember seeing my mom, but how it affected her falling to the ground.
Investigator Dwayne Rolfs is struck by the unimaginable cruelty on display.
It was a very violent scene. There was a lot of blood inside the trailer, inside the mobile home. There was a large amount of blood in the bedroom area. There was also blood in other parts of the home as well.
Blood from an overkill of stab wounds. 60 times with a knife. The final blow straight to the chest. The killer then arranging the scene for maximum terror.
Her body was moved and positioned maybe after she was killed.
And one final despicable detail.
There was seminal fluid that was swabbed along with blood evidence from the scene itself. It was possible that she was sexually assaulted after the homicide was committed.
But sifting through the grisly scene, cops discover a critical clue. The killer had injured himself as Holly courageously fought for her life, leaving drops of blood all over Holly's home.
There was a large amount of blood located in the crime scene. Based on that, we collected many samples of that blood from different various rooms within the house.
Blood evidence, seminal DNA. Now cops have to match that to a killer. Was it someone Holly knew?
I don't feel that it was random. The way they killed her, the way they mutilated her body afterwards.
Holly didn't have an enemy in the world, except maybe for one. Loving single mom Holly Cassano, home alone, savagely murdered.
It was obvious this was a brutal attack.
That brutality leaves Holly's killer wounded, with his blood all over Holly's modest home.
There was a large amount of blood that was found inside the home, and it was offender blood.
There's no time to waste. Cops need to find Holly's killer before his wounds heal or he leaves town. They check local hospital records. No patients with knife wounds match the killer's blood.
Those persons have been eliminated from this crime.
Police also canvassed the 600-plus unit Candlewood Estates. They interviewed co-workers from the supermarket where Holly worked.
We watched video, tried to find the subjects that came in contact with her.
Detectives gathered DNA swabs numbering in the hundreds. They are all dead ends. They don't get a single match. But the rage of the murder, the post-mortem sexual assault, tells cops this was no random act of violence. They say the killer is someone Holly knew or someone who wanted to know her. But who in the world would hurt the beautiful young woman everybody loved?
Somebody who did this to my niece had to have known her. There was so many reasons that it shows that it was personal.
The girl next door with the friendly smile did struggle with one of her relationships. And when Holly's killed, her Aunt Christine points the finger.
Chris did it. I was sure Chris was the one who was responsible.
Chris is the father of Holly's baby Alexis, Christopher Walker. Holly's mom, Tony, claims Chris was hurting Holly.
Christopher liked to be the boss. He liked to push her around. She had bruises on her arms, and there was always an excuse why she had a bruise on her.
Finally, excuses aren't enough.
Holly went and attempted to get a couple of restraining orders against Christopher, and both of those were denied.
Denied for lack of evidence, but it's enough for police to take a closer look at Holly's ex.
It was approximately 3 hours after Holly's body was discovered that we located him. We asked him to come down to the sheriff's office, and he did so.
Investigators grill Walker for hours. He gives a DNA sample and takes a polygraph. The results come back, and cops are shocked.
We kind of hit a dead end on that.
Ultimately, that DNA was sent off to the state crime lab and compared against our offender DNA, and it did not match.
Without a DNA match and an inconclusive polygraph, Christopher Walker, is clear, leaving investigators stumped and the case stalled.
Unfortunately, at this point, 8 years later, we still don't have a match.
But now, brand new state-of-the-art DNA analysis is giving Holly's family hope. Investigators are using the killer's blood and seminal fluid to put a face on Holly's killer.
The results from that indicated that the DNA, the offender DNA, may be, but not limited to, of course, Native American, Hispanic, Central, South American population.
Police now have a new direction, but they still need a name. And soon, even though it's been 8 years, cops feel a renewed sense of urgency.
It's very, very possible that this offender committed a similar crime in the past, and if he hasn't done it since, he probably could do it again.
And Holly's mom is pleading for your help.
I beg for you to call the sheriff's department with any information that you have. The reason it's so important to find out who this person is isn't just for me in my case, but it's for you and everybody watching, because this person could be sitting right next to you, planning your murder next.
If you know anything about the death of Holly Cassano, you can submit a tip anonymously on the Crime Stoppers hotline. That number is 1-217-373-8477.